मिलिंद मुरली देवरा राज्यसभेचा सदस्य म्हणून निवडून आलो असल्याने ईश्वर साक्ष शपथ घेतो की कायद्याद्वारे स्थापित झाले आहे अशा भारतीय संविधानाबद्दल मी खरी श्रद्धा व निष्ठा बाळगीन. भारताची सार्वभौमता व एकात्मता उन्नत राखीन आणि आता जे कर्तव्य मी हाती घेणार आहे ते निष्ठापूर्वक पार पाडीन.
Hello and welcome viewers. You're watching this special presentation of Sunset TV with your host Kriti Mishra. And joining us right now is a very special guest, member of Upper House of Parliament and chairperson of the Parliamentary Subordinate Legislation Committee of the Rajya Sabha, Mr. Milind Deora. Sir, welcome to Sunset TV and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Let's begin talking about your parliamentary journey. You're one of the young entrants in politics. You became member of the lower house of Parliament at the age of 27. You've been the member of 14th Lok Sabha, 15th Lok Sabha, now member of the Rajya Sabha. Take us through your parliamentary journey.
You're right. I was one of the youngest MPs when I first entered the House in 2004. I was 27 years of age. I grew up in a political family, but it was very clear to me from childhood that I would never get into politics. In fact, I was raised by my parents to enter. We had a family business in packaging. Politics for my father was largely around philanthropy, around social work, around working through NGOs in the community. And I went to study in the United States, completed my undergraduate studies from the US, returned to India. And as someone who grew up in Mumbai, I was shocked and appalled to find that in the heart of South Mumbai, which is the most economically, the richest district in the country, right down the street from where I lived in Malabar Hill, you had schools where, although information technology was a part of the government of Maharashtra's syllabus in 2001, these schools didn't have money for blackboards and for, literally for chalk and for dusters. And the idea of having a computer laboratory was completely alien to them. And I put together some kind of a public-private partnership using the private sector in Mumbai who donated second-hand hardware, and we really built one of India's first digital partnerships with the private sector, with the government, and we achieved an award where South Mumbai, from being one of the worst in terms of digital literacy, became one of the best in digital literacy in Maharashtra and in many other parts of the country. That was really a backdoor way that I got into politics. It happened almost accidentally. Because in 2004, when my late father, who had been fighting Lok Sabha elections several times, he had fought, I think, 7 Lok Sabha elections from 1980 to 1999. And he was a member of the Upper House.
Yeah.
And at that time, the party was looking for a candidate. And the surveys said that because of this computer literacy program, Milind has a connect among parents and among younger people in the area, and one thing led to another, and I fought the election not thinking that I would win, of course hoping I would win, and I went on to become the youngest MP. I had the chance to be re-elected in 2009. I became a union minister after that, and now, as you mentioned, from the Lok Sabha I've moved to the Upper House, the House of the Elders. Age has caught up, I guess, but it's a privilege to serve in Parliament. And Parliament, I often I tell people this especially when I visit colleges and young students ask me what is unique about Parliament. And I often tell them that there's no single physical location in India where you can see all of India's diversity in one place. People from different customs, different states, different languages, different clothing, customs, and when you reach the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha for that matter, that's where you really get to see India's diversity in all its glory. So that's really been my journey in the last 21 years in Parliament and beyond.
Absolutely, but one thing that is really intriguing to me as a journalist, of course, survey about a candidate is one thing, but what exactly prodded you to get into political life?
So, my late father, he was somebody who really never was a quintessential politician. I remember as a young child, on Saturdays and Sundays, he would take us to various programs that would be organized which were outside of politics. It could be an eye camp that he was very passionate about doing, which we still continue in Mumbai city. It could be a health camp, a medical camp, something relating to education. And to me, politics, like I think different people have different entry points into politics. For some people, it could be the community they belong to, a certain identity that they come with. For someone else, it could be a certain political activism which propelled them into mainstream politics. For my late father and for me, it was really through the path and the door of social work. And that's how it happened. It happened very, very accidentally, very unexpectedly. I was suddenly told by my party at the time that, we are looking for a candidate from South Mumbai. South Mumbai, मैं आज भी गर्व से कह सकता हूँ कि दक्षिण मुंबई भारत की सबसे एक प्रकार से सबसे विविध निर्वाचन क्षेत्र है, क्योंकि आपको देश के सबसे अमीर लोग वहाँ नजर आएंगे. आप मीन्स अंबानी, बिरला, टाटा, these people live in South Mumbai, and you will find people जो झुग्गियों में रहते हैं, पुराने चार्ल्स में रहते हैं, जो चार्ल्स में रहते हैं, जो किराएदार है. और उस एरिया का प्रतिनिधित्व करना, खास करके पार्लियामेंट में उसका रिप्रेजेंटेशन करना, मैं मानता हूँ एक बहुत बड़ी सौभाग्य की बात है और एक बहुत बड़ा अवसर है to take everybody along and to find commonalities between these two communities who don't often talk but yet are very closely integrated. So that's always been the nature of our politics. It's always been through the path of social work, but it's really to bring this very diverse constituency called Mumbai together, where you have different religions, languages, people coming from different parts of India, different economic strata, and finding something that is common. That I think is a challenge, but that's also a great opportunity.
Absolutely. जैसा कि आपने कहा, बेहद कवेटेड और प्रेस्टिजियस सीट है मुंबई साउथ. मुंबई साउथ को रिप्रेजेंट करने से लेकर पूरे महाराष्ट्र को रिप्रेजेंट करने तक का सफर कैसा रहा?
देखिए, मैं एक राज्यसभा सांसद होने के नाते, एक राज्यसभा सांसद का टेक्निकली वे एक राज्य से चुन के आते हैं जी. तो एक प्रकार से मैं संपूर्ण महाराष्ट्र का सांसद हूँ, लेकिन आज भी मेरा जो एक सॉफ्ट कॉर्नर है वो दक्षिण मुंबई के लिए, और आज भी मैं मानता हूँ कि मैं दक्षिण मुंबई के सांसद के रूप में मैं काम कर रहा हूँ. बट आई ऑल्सो हैव द अपॉर्चुनिटी टू यूज फॉर एग्जाम्पल माई MP फंड, विच इफ यू आर अ लोकसभा MP, आप यदि एक लोकसभा सांसद होंगे तो आप केवल अपने निर्वाचन क्षेत्र तक उस MP फंड सांसद निधि को यूज कर सकते हैं. एक राज्यसभा सांसद होने के नाते आप पूर्ण राज्य में उस फंड का उपयोग कर सकते हैं. सो आज मुझे ग्रामीण क्षेत्र से लेकर शहरी क्षेत्र तक ऐसे बहुत सारे प्रस्ताव मेरे पास आते हैं, बहुत से लोग आते हैं मेरे पास, और मुझे हर एक क्षेत्र में फंड का उपयोग करने का एक अवसर मिलता है. सो आई कंसिडर दिस अ ग्रेट अपॉर्चुनिटी बिकॉज दिस इज नॉट समथिंग आई हैड व्हेन आई वाज अ लोकसभा MP, स्पेशली फ्रॉम अ वेरी डेवलप्ड urban constituency like South Mumbai.
Yes. There has been a lot of focus particularly on urban infrastructure, computer literacy. What has changed in Mumbai South? What has changed in Maharashtra? And of course, later I'll also ask you, as a parliamentarian, what has changed in terms of technology?
You know, to be honest with you, when I came back to India in 2000 or so, the country's and to some extent the world's digital landscape looked very different. At the time, digital literacy really meant having a computer, having a what's called a desktop for those who are old enough to remember. It meant, you have the monitor, the keyboard, the mouse, the CPU. Today, the computing power of a mobile phone or a smartphone is more than the computing power of the rockets and the shuttles that went to the moon in the 60s.
That's true.
So we have massive computing power in our pockets. So of course the digital landscape has changed. I had the opportunity as a union minister to be a minister of state in the Ministry of Communications and IT. And I was fortunate enough to be looking after a very integral area called the National E-Governance Plan, which now is part of the larger umbrella of Digital India. And I found that a great experience because I found that similar to when I came back to India and I would help schools which cater to very underprivileged kids to have these computing capabilities in their school. I found that the use of technology to reduce corruption, to make government services more easily available to the average citizen, to improve efficiency in government delivery, I found that very, very exciting. And I remember using e-governance, part of the National E-Governance Plan. One of the first projects was e-filing of income tax returns.
Yeah.
Today we've moved to a faceless, nameless assessment of returns.
That's right.
Not just the filing, but actual assessment by an assessing officer in the government of India,
That's right.
an income tax officer. That's happening digitally. One of the early projects was what was called Passport Seva Kendra.
Yes.
And I remember when I first became an MP in 2004, in a constituency like Mumbai, people would come to me and say, can you please help me renew my passport? I'm traveling in 5 days and my passport pages, I don't have any pages, or my passport is expired. And as an MP, what could you do? You would call up the passport officer, you would write a letter, sometimes they would accommodate them, sometimes they wouldn't. Now within a stipulated period of time, using e-governance, people will receive their passport. There's no need to go to an MP, there's no need to go to the passport officer. That makes things more efficient, it reduces potential corruption. So these are things which I've seen happen over the years. Of course, Aadhaar is a unique project, direct benefits transfer is a unique project. So I think today India is certainly leading the world when it comes to the delivery of public services using technology.
Absolutely.
We are far ahead of many, many developed countries in the world.
Another sphere where you had remarkable contribution was cluster redevelopment scheme. How did you think of that?
Actually South Mumbai और मुंबई में बहुत कंजेशन है वहाँ बहुत से जो ज़रूरतमंद लोग हैं वे जो झोपड़पट्टियों में रहते हैं, झुग्गियों में रहते हैं, पुराने चॉल्स में रहते हैं और होता क्या है कि हर एक की इच्छा है, अपेक्षा है, आकांक्षा है कि उन्हें एक परमानेंट ओनरशिप बेसिस पर घर मिले। कहते हैं ना कि अपना मकान कोट सम्मान। एंड गवर्नमेंट ऑफ महाराष्ट्र का एक बहुत ही सुंदर, बहुत ही एक अच्छा रीडेवलपमेंट स्कीम है जिसके माध्यम से झोपड़पट्टी में रहने वाले लोगों को और चौल में रहने वाले लोगों को हम उनको रीडेवलपमेंट प्रोजेक्ट के रीडेवलपमेंट में बहुत सहायता देते हैं। पब्लिक प्राइवेट पार्टनरशिप, उसमें बिल्डर भी, प्राइवेट निजी सेक्टर के लोग भी शामिल होते हैं। लेकिन होता क्या था कि एक बिल्डिंग की जब रीडेवलपमेंट होती है उसके बगल में बहुत सारे पुराने बिल्डिंग्स हैं, 2 माले की बिल्डिंग्स है, अचानक एक 20 माले की बिल्डिंग खड़ी हो जाती है। उसकी वजह से उस पूरी एरिया के इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर पर बहुत भारी दबाव पड़ती थी। बिकॉज द लेन इज अ नैरो लेन, सडनली यू हैव कार्स फॉर 100 flats and suddenly there's a traffic problem, suddenly there's a population has increased, but where are the schools, where are the hospitals, where are the wider roads, where is the sewage infrastructure underneath, where is the water? So the idea was, how do you plan development and redevelopment, more importantly redevelopment, rather than building by building? How do you plan it block by block, cluster by cluster? It's actually been done in many parts of the world. America used to have a program called the National Urban Regeneration Program.
Yes.
They would take blocks and then redevelop those entire blocks. What that did was it allowed the government to get a large parcel of land where you can plan better.
Yeah.
You can widen the roads. You can add a hospital. You can add a school. You can add better infrastructure. So we studied those. I asked the state government at the time, उस समय कि मुख्यमंत्री, तत्कालीन मुख्यमंत्री से मैंने निवेदन किया कि आपको भी स्टडी करना चाहिए अमेरिका और अंतर्राष्ट्रीय शहरों में उनका क्या मॉडल है। और हमने क्लस्टर रीडेवलपमेंट प्रोजेक्ट तैयार किया और आज मैं बहुत ही प्रसन्नता से कह सकता हूँ कि देश का सबसे पहले अर्बन शहरी क्लस्टर रीडेवलपमेंट प्रोजेक्ट हमारे दक्षिण मुंबई की मुंबादेवी परिसर में हुई, जिसमें लाखों लोगों को हमने परमानेंट घर दिया। जो छोटे दुकानदार थे उनको परमानेंट हाई क्वालिटी का एक दुकान दिया और सरकार को एक प्रकार से उस पूरी एरिया जो बहुत ही कंजेस्टेड थी उस एरिया को अच्छी तरह से प्लान करने का हमने एक अवसर दिया। सो दिस प्रोजेक्ट नाउ आज महाराष्ट्र सरकार की जो एक क्लस्टर रीडेवलपमेंट स्कीम है, हम पूरी महाराष्ट्र में उस स्कीम को ले जा रहे हैं, विच इज़ गुड फॉर द स्टेट, इट्स गुड फॉर द पीपल and it's good for the city. And in fact, I also have requested many times जो केंद्र की जो अर्बन हाउसिंग एंड जो मंत्रालय है, मैंने उनसे भी निवेदन किया कि आइए महाराष्ट्र में, मुंबई में हमारी जो प्रोजेक्ट है, स्कीम है, उसे कृपया स्टडी कीजिएगा, एंड वी कैन टेक दिस टू डिफरेंट पार्ट्स ऑफ द कंट्री, बिकॉज every city in our country is experiencing huge urban generation problems.
Right.
Every city is seeing urbanization happening at a very, very rapid rate.
Right.
So I can see this being applied to Delhi, I can see it being applied to large tier 1 cities and to tier 2, tier 3 cities.
Another very important concept, you've always talked about accountability in local governance, DMDA. Tell us about that. What's that governance model?
See, this is a very, very complex, but I'll try to simplify it. It's basically, if you ask anyone who lives in a city, in a large city, whether it's Mumbai, New Delhi, I don't know, Bengaluru.
Yeah.
If you ask them to name their member of parliament, they would know. If you ask them to name the local MLA, they would know who it is. If you ask them to name the local corporator, they may know who it is. If you ask them to name the mayor of their city, they would not know who that mayor is. And that demonstrates that there's been a breakdown in urban governance.
True.
Now the fact is that India is one of the fastest urbanizing economies in the world after China. More and more people from villages are leaving villages to come to cities, tier 1 cities, tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities. While we need infrastructure, and we all focus on urban infrastructure, that's essential. But what about urban governance?
True.
If the system of governing the cities is broken, doesn't exist, you will not be able to deliver on the promise of urban regeneration, of urban development. And one of the potential ideas is to make mayors of cities, especially large cities like Mumbai, more accountable with greater powers. And one of those ideas is a concept of a directly elected mayor. That's one idea that I have. On the lines of, say, a large city like London, on the lines of a large city like New York.
Yeah.
If you take a country like America, they too, like India, have a 3-tier system of government. They have a federal government, central government, they have a state government, and they have a local government. But if there's a terror attack in New York City, if there's a flood in New York City, if there's a natural disaster in New York City, the person who you'll see leading from the front is the mayor. In Indian cities, you'll see the chief minister. You'll see a union minister. So that's the kind of power we need to give to local leaders and to local governments. And that's provision already exists in our constitution to devolve power. So this just requires, I think, more than political will, it requires political consensus.
Absolutely.
And to some degree, political awareness among us as politicians and among the electorate.
So are you executing all these vibrant ideas through the chairmanship of Subordinate Legislation Committee of Rajya Sabha?
You know, I have had the privilege of being chairman of this very prestigious committee for the last year, and it's been a great honor, and I'm very grateful to my party, to the government for giving me this opportunity, because this is the only committee where you can study, go through subordinate legislation, rules, regulations. So when a bill gets passed, which is the prerogative of the executive and the legislature, this is the only committee where you can go deep into the rules. And we've had the honor of going through some very, very important rules as a committee. We went through a very important rule relating to the Environment Act, which is the air pollution stubble burning rules. We presented, I would say, a very holistic report after talking to many, many stakeholders. Received some good feedback from the government and from other sources. We went through the telecommunications rules which relate to cybersecurity and critical infrastructure to assess how vulnerable our networks are to cyber attacks from other countries. And currently, which seems to be a very popular issue that we've taken up, at least among my colleagues who are members of parliament who are in my committee, is the issue relating to the food safety standards of India.
Yes.
And how does the FSSAI, which is the Food Safety Standards, I think Association of India, Authority of India, I'm sorry, how they label foods, how they inform consumers about potential health benefits or about potential health hazards relating to foods. How do you create more awareness? And I think this is very much in line with the Prime Minister's objectives of reducing obesity in India, which is a very serious concern. If we look at Western countries, one of their most serious issues is rising obesity levels.
True.
And with Indians adopting certain Western lifestyles, we too are moving towards what could potentially become an obesity epidemic.
Right.
And to reduce that, while fitness is important, diet is important, but nutritional information being put out by the government in a simple, concise way, which allows the consumer, allows, let's say, a parent of a young child who is going out to the supermarket and wants to give their child juice, but under the garb of juice is actually giving them sugar water and contributing to obesity and other diseases and early onset diabetes. That is one area we are looking at, examining right now, and hopefully we will complete that. So it's a very exciting committee, and it's exciting because we really get to go deep into the rules and prepare a report to make suggestions, constructive suggestions to the government that I think could go a long way in making the government's objectives, the executive's objectives, more concise, clear, and easy to implement.
And before we wrap up this conversation, a very exciting personal question. You're an accomplished rock guitarist. Do you still get time for it?
Very rarely. And very recently I had a chance to play at a charity event.
Okay.
And but very rarely. I don't really play as often in public. But I do get, I do find that it's very meditative for myself. So whether I'm having a very busy day, sometimes when I'm on the phone, sometimes when I'm reading something, I still would have my guitar with me and just strumming and playing. And you know, this is a musician's conversation, but every musician, if you talk to a musician, they all, when they reach a certain stage and of playing an instrument or of singing or of any kind of art form, even if you're not doing it, you're not actually doing that, performing that art form. So if you're a painter and you're not painting regularly, sometimes in your mind you're painting.
Yeah. Right.
Sometimes in your mind you are playing. Sometimes in your mind, if you're a singer, you're vocalizing. And that keeps happening. So I could be in the midst of something very busy, but my mind could be going into a musical space. So music is an integral part of my life. In my opinion, it's the most honest form of human expression that exists.
True. It is cathartic. But on that note, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for sharing all those perspectives with us. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me.